Which is worse for you, a donut or a fruit roll-up? Which is a better breakfast, a Snickers bar or a bowl of unsweetened cornflakes? Which is more likely to spike your blood sugar, a Coca-Cola or a bagel? Which has more sugar in it, jelly beans or white bread? The sugar content of a piece of fruit is virtually identical to that of high fructose corn syrup. So, is fruit bad for you? Or is high fructose corn syrup good for you? What's the freaking difference? Now, even though donuts are still really horrible for you, donuts actually aren't going to spike your blood sugar as badly as fruit roll-ups, which parents often give very lovingly to their kids. And believe it or not, I would actually choose a Snickers bar as a better breakfast item than a bowl of cornflakes. Now I know you're thinking, what the hell, Karina? Did you just tell me that candy is better than a bowl of cereal for me to eat for breakfast? Would you believe that a bagel is more likely to spike your blood sugar than a Coca-Cola? And surprisingly, ounce for ounce, white bread contains more sugar than jelly beans. In this video, I'm going to explain why. Now there's a lot of misconceptions about carbohydrates, aka sugars, and in this video I'm going to lay it all out. So we've got 4 basic sugars: glucose, lactose, fructose, and sucrose. These are called the simple carbohydrates. The first type of sugar is glucose, and this is the main sugar that the cells in our body use for energy. Glucose is found naturally in fruits and vegetables. The next sugar is lactose, and that's the sugar that you find in milk products. Now we aren't going to be examining lactose in this particular video, but we will address it more in the future. Fructose is sugar from fruit, and like glucose, it's naturally found in fruits and vegetables. And then we have sucrose, which is just table sugar. It is a double molecule containing 1 molecule of fructose and 1 molecule of glucose, and it's generally created by processing and refining sugarcane or sugar beets. And then we have starch, which is usually referred to as a complex carbohydrate. Now, starch is the primary storage mechanism that plants use to store energy, so it's kind of the plant's way of storing glucose. And it's important to note that starch molecules is just a chain of glucose molecules all strung together. So you have the simple carbohydrate, the glucose, that's strung together to create the complex carbohydrate, starch. The main starches are wheat, rice, corn, and potatoes, and any foods that are made from those. So your bread, pasta, corn chips, cakes, cereals, donuts, etc. Now, often these starchy foods don't taste sweet, and so we don't think of them as being the same as sugar. But you don't want to make that mistake, especially if you're trying to lose weight. And we'll go further into detail in that later in the video. Now, it's important to know that the body absorbs and utilizes each of the different types of sugars in a different way. And this metabolic pathway, or the path that the body uses to absorb and utilize that sugar, can be explained like this. Now, glucose is the easiest sugar for your body to use. When you ingest something containing glucose, it goes into your stomach and then your small intestine, where it immediately is absorbed into your bloodstream. Your blood then takes that glucose around to all the cells in your body so that it can be used for energy, and any excess glucose can be stored as fat. Your body can also use glucose without doing any other chemical changes to it. So glucose is by far the fastest pathway, the fastest way for sugar to enter your blood and to give your cells the energy that they need. Fructose, however, cannot be used immediately by our cells. It must undergo chemical changes in the liver before it can be used. So, like glucose, it's absorbed into the bloodstream once it enters the small intestine, but first it must be processed in the liver and then distributed to cells for energy. So fructose is a slower metabolic pathway than glucose. So what about sucrose, or table sugar? When sucrose hits your small intestine, it's actually split into its 2 parts. It's 1 fructose and 1 glucose. And then the glucose goes in, immediately hits your bloodstream and can immediately be used, and the fructose is sent to your liver for processing. All natural fruits and vegetables contain some glucose and some fructose. And the ratio of glucose to fructose can vary from food to food. A grape, apple, or banana has about a 1-to-1 ratio, so it's half glucose and half fructose. And the ratio rarely exceeds 2-to-1, where a pear is about 2 parts fructose to 1 part glucose, but sweet corn is closer to 2 parts glucose to 1 part fructose. Furthermore, fruits and vegetables, high fructose corn syrup, and table sugar all contain fructose and glucose. The only difference is the ratio of fructose to glucose and the fact that in sucrose or table sugar, those 2 molecules are combined. But in fruits and vegetables or high fructose corn syrup, the fructose and glucose are already separated. So what happens when we eat complex carbohydrates or starches? Remember that a starch is just a string of glucose molecules or simple sugars all strung together. And you should know that when that food hits your small intestine, those chains are immediately broken. And now you have a huge load of glucose molecules that are going to immediately enter your bloodstream. And this all happens in a matter of seconds. So while the pathway may be a little bit longer, we're still talking about a pretty quick absorption of sugar into your blood. Another thing to recognize is that this is all glucose molecules. Unlike things that contain a little bit of fructose, which have to go to the liver, all of these glucose molecules are going to immediately flood your blood with sugar. And this is why a piece of white bread or a bagel or a bowl of cornflakes is going to spike your blood sugar worse than jelly beans or a soda. There's a scale called the glycemic index, and it's just a measurement of how quickly certain foods are going to affect your blood sugar. So pure glucose is considered a 100 on the glycemic index, and fats and proteins are lowest on the scale because they take the longest to be metabolized. So peanuts, which are mostly fat, are only a 15 on the glycemic index. But let's take a look at some other popular foods. Broccoli, 15. Apples, 38. Snickers, 40. Orange, 44. Banana, 51. Coca-Cola, 58. Table sugar, 65. White bread, 71. Corn chips, 74. Potato chips, 75. Donuts, 76. Jelly beans, 80. Cornflakes, 83. And fruit roll-ups, 99. Now you'll probably notice that the table sugar or sucrose is lower glycemic than the white bread, potato chips, donut, and cornflakes. This is because the starch is 100% glucose, so all that glucose hits your blood almost immediately. But the table sugar is half fructose, half glucose, so it takes a little bit longer on its metabolic pathway because it has to split the fructose and glucose and then send that fructose to the liver for processing. It's very important to note that starches do not contain fructose. They're 100% glucose, and that means that the metabolic pathway is a lot faster and you're going to be a lot more likely to spike your blood sugar when you consume them. So if you're eating a lot of super starchy foods like popcorn, corn chips, potato chips, French fries, pasta, white bread, you need to realize that these are basically pure sugar. And that's the main thing I want to drive home in this video, is that starches are sugar. And we all know that we should avoid sweets, and if we're on a diet, we want to try not to eat too much sugar. But you have to realize that these starches are sugar, and if you eat too much of them, they're going to cause weight gain, they're going to cause diabetes, they're going to spike your blood sugar, and they're not going to be healthful. You'll probably also notice that fruits and vegetables are pretty low on the glycemic index. Most of the time, but not always, natural foods are going to be lower glycemic than refined or processed foods. So this is why the fruit roll-up clocks in at a 99, because it is basically 100% sugar, 100% cornstarch. But the apple and the orange, the fruits, contain both fructose and glucose, which slows the metabolic pathway, and they also contain a lot of fiber, which also slows the amount of time it's going to take that sugar to hit your blood. The reason that the Snickers bar is lower glycemic than an orange is because it also contains fat from the peanuts and the milk in the milk chocolate. So if fruits and high fructose corn syrup have the same sugar content, why are fruits good and high fructose corn syrup bad? Well, fruits contain a lot of things in addition to just the sugar. They contain enzymes, minerals, vitamins, they contain fiber, and in some cases even protein. So it's a complete nutritional package where that apple or that orange actually contains all of the different components your body is going to need to use it most effectively. But the high fructose corn syrup is just pure sugar. You see, no one nutrient is bad. Glucose is not bad, it's the energy source of our body. We couldn't live without it. Fats aren't bad, proteins aren't bad, vitamins and minerals aren't bad. What's bad is when you get an imbalance of nutrients. So too much of one and not enough of the others. Maybe you consume too many carbs and too many sugars, but you aren't getting enough fats and enough protein. If you look at yourself and you're overweight, chances are you're consuming way too many sugars and not enough fiber, vitamins, and minerals. And every time you eat something that's refined sugar or a fruit roll-up, you're just perpetuating that imbalance because high fructose corn syrup and most of those refined foods don't contain any of the other nutrients that your body needs. So this video has a few main points. Number 1. Starches are sugars. They're going to spike your blood sugar and they're going to contribute to weight gain. 2. Lay off the processed crap and please eat more fruits and vegetables. 3. Please stop feeding your kids fruit roll-ups. There are 2,320 calories in a pound of corn chips, but a pound of apples only contains 240 calories. That's right, you could eat 10 pounds of apples to get the same amount of calories as 1 pound of corn chips. In a future video, we're going to discuss calorie density and why you could actually be eating a larger volume of the right foods and still lose weight. You probably already know that Coca-Cola got its name because it used to contain cocaine, and that when cocaine became illegal, they had to replace it with caffeine. Soda pop is the #1 most purchased item in American grocery stores, and we as Americans spend more than $70 billion on soda pop each year. But how bad is Coca-Cola for us, really? Be sure to subscribe, because in a future video, I'm gonna tell ya. If you learned anything from this video, please share it with your friends, because they would probably love to know too. And if you haven't done so already, please click on that like button below to give me a thumbs up. If you're overweight, you're eating too much sugar. Find out why people gain weight and watch this video in the upper left corner. Fruit does contain a lot of sugar, so is fruit good for you or is fruit bad for you? To find out, watch this video on the truth about fruit in the upper right. What's the most obesity-causing foods you can eat? To find out the most fattening foods to avoid, watch my video in the bottom left. And what is the difference between junk foods and superfoods? What is it that we should really be eating? To find out, check out my video in the lower right-hand corner.